Yet in these quiet nights, she also found a strange beauty. The stars above sparkled with a brilliance she had never noticed before, and the cool night air soothed her tired body. One evening, as Maria followed the faint outline of a distant ridge, she came across a shallow stream cutting through the rocks. Relief flooded her. She knelt at the water's edge, letting the cool water flow over her hands and into her mouth. She drank slowly, savoring each sip as if it were a treasure. Then she filled her water skin, knowing that these small resources could mean the difference between life and death. While she drank, she noticed the tracks of an animal, probably a fox or a coyote, near the bank. The signs reminded her that the desert, while beautiful, was also home to creatures that could be dangerous or helpful. She could learn from the land if only she paid attention. Over the next few days, Maria's survival skills continued to improve. She learned to hunt small animals, using simple traps and careful observation. She gathered edible plants when she could identify them, always cautious not to eat anything unfamiliar. Her mind, once filled with fear and panic, began to focus on solutions. She thought about her mother's stories of women who had faced impossible odds and survived. "I can do this," she whispered to herself each morning, tying her long hair back and stepping into the bright sunlight with renewed determination. Despite her growing skills, Maria often felt lonely. She missed her family, especially her mother, and wondered if they worried about her. At night she would whisper their names into the wind, hoping somehow they could hear her. She also missed the small comforts of home, the warmth of a fire, the taste of fresh bread, the feeling of safety within a familiar room. But she reminded herself that she had chosen freedom over comfort. She had chosen a chance at life on her own terms, no matter how difficult. On the seventh day, Maria faced one of her greatest challenges yet. A sudden sandstorm swept across the desert, blinding her with clouds of fine, stinging sand. She struggled to find shelter, moving only when she could feel the contours of the ground beneath her feet. The storm was relentless, battering her body and filling her mouth with grit. She stumbled and fell, scraping her knees and hands on the rough stones. Fear gripped her, and she wondered if she would make it through. But then she remembered her determination, her promise to herself. She pushed through the storm, crawling into a small crevice between two rocks, where the walls shielded her from the worst of the wind. She stayed there for hours, shivering and exhausted, until the storm finally passed. When the storm ended, the desert looked almost peaceful again. But Maria knew better. The land was beautiful, but it was also dangerous, unforgiving, and unpredictable. She had survived, but the experience left her wary and more alert than ever. She took extra care to observe her surroundings, moving carefully along paths that offered both cover and visibility. Every day she became stronger, faster, and more aware of the land around her. Her confidence grew, and with it, a quiet sense of pride. She had escaped her father's betrayal, and now she was learning to thrive on her own. During her journey, Maria also encountered moments of unexpected wonder. She came across a hidden oasis, a small pool of clear water surrounded by green plants. Birds chirped and bathed in the water, their songs a soothing melody in the otherwise silent desert. Maria rested there, drinking and washing her face. She felt a sense of peace she had not experienced since before her father's decision. In that brief moment, she allowed herself to believe that life could be beautiful even in the midst of hardship. The oasis became her secret place, a reminder that even in difficult times, there could be hope and comfort. Yet, Maria knew she could not stay in one place for long. She needed to keep moving, to find somewhere safe from the people who might come searching for her. She thought carefully about each step, choosing paths that offered protection and distance from the village she had fled. The desert, once frightening and overwhelming, began to feel like a vast canvas where she could create her own story. She learned to navigate by the sun and stars, to recognize landmarks, and to move quietly when necessary. Her skills were growing, and with each day her chances of survival increased. By the 10th day, Maria began to notice changes in herself. Her fear was still present, but it no longer controlled her. She felt stronger, braver, and more capable than she had ever imagined. She had faced hunger, thirst, storms, and loneliness, and she had endured. Each challenge had taught her something new, not just about the desert, but about herself. She realized that she could rely on her own instincts, that she had the courage to face the unknown, and that she was capable of surviving against all odds. As she moved forward, Maria's thoughts often returned to the idea of help. She had survived alone so far, but she knew there might be people in the world who could assist her, who could offer safety and kindness. She thought carefully about how to find them, how to trust without putting herself in danger. The lessons of the desert had taught her patience, observation, and caution. She would not rush into anyone's company, but she also knew she could not live in isolation forever. The key was to find someone trustworthy, someone who would see her as a person, not as property or a prize. Maria's journey through the desert was far from easy, but it was transforming her. She was learning resilience, patience, and courage. She had escaped her father's control, and in doing so, she discovered a strength she had never known. The desert tested her body, mind, and spirit, but each challenge she faced became a stepping stone to her freedom. With every sunrise and every sunset, she grew more confident that she could survive, more determined to find safety, and more certain that she would never allow anyone to take her freedom again. Maria had been traveling through the desert for weeks. Her body was stronger now, hardened by the sun, sand, and wind. Her legs had become steady, her hands capable of climbing rocks and holding herself through the roughest terrain. She knew how to find water and how to hide from danger. Yet even with all her newfound skills, she could not escape the loneliness that followed her like a shadow. Each night when the stars shone bright in the sky, she whispered her mother's name, her father's betrayal, and her own promise of freedom into the cool wind. She hoped someone kind, someone trustworthy, might be out there somewhere, a person who could help her survive without fear. One afternoon, while walking through a narrow canyon that carved through the desert hills, Maria spotted something unusual. Far in the distance, she saw a figure moving slowly, leaning over as if tending to something. Her heart jumped. For weeks she had avoided anyone, keeping herself hidden from villagers, strangers, and even wandering travelers. But something about this figure made her pause. He did not move with threat or aggression. There was calm in the way he handled his task. She squinted, shielding her eyes from the bright sun, and saw a small herd of animals grazing nearby. The man was careful with them, gentle even. Maria's curiosity and cautious hope pushed her to move a little closer, using the canyon's rocks and shadows as cover. She watched him for a while, noticing the way he fed the animals, his careful attention to their needs, and the quiet confidence in his movements. He looked different from anyone she had seen before, a stranger who seemed kind rather than cruel. Maria felt something she hadn't felt in weeks, the spark of trust, small but real. Still, fear whispered in her mind. She could not know his intentions. What if he was like the man who had tried to buy her life? What if he was dangerous? Her instincts, sharpened by survival, told her to be careful, to wait and observe. She crouched behind a rock, watching, her heart pounding, her hands gripping the dirt for balance. As the afternoon passed, the man moved closer to a shaded area beneath a large tree. He set down a small bag and began preparing something to eat for himself. Maria realized that she could not survive alone forever. She needed help, food, and perhaps guidance. But how could she approach him safely? She took a deep breath, recalling the survival lessons her mother had taught her. Patience, observation, and quiet courage. These had saved her before, and they might save her again. Slowly, cautiously, she stepped from her hiding place, making sure her movements were gentle and non-threatening. The man noticed her almost immediately. His eyes widened for just a moment, then softened with understanding. He did not reach for a weapon, did not call for her to stop. Instead, he tilted his head and smiled faintly, a gesture of quiet welcome. Maria felt a wave of relief but did not relax. She approached slowly, keeping her eyes on him, her hands visible, and her voice barely a whisper. I need help," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, I am alone." The man nodded.
"I can see that," he replied in a calm, steady voice.
"You look tired. You must be careful in this desert. Come, sit. Eat something first." He offered her some bread and water from his bag. Maria hesitated. But hunger and thirst overcame caution. She took the food, her hands shaking slightly, and ate while the man watched quietly. His calm presence eased her anxiety, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a small sense of safety. After she had eaten, Maria began to explain in fragments and hesitant words what had happened. She told him about her father's decision, her escape, and the dangers she had faced in the desert. The man listened without interruption, his expression gentle and attentive. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "You have been very brave," he said. "Not many could survive as long as you have alone in this desert. But you should not be out here by yourself any longer. I can help you if you are willing to trust me." Maria considered his words carefully. Trust did not come easily to her anymore. She had been betrayed once by someone who was supposed to care for her. But something about this man, the way he cared for his animals, the calm strength in his voice, the kindness in his eyes, made her believe he was different. She nodded slowly. I will try," she said. The relief in her chest was almost overwhelming, mixed with a new sense of hope. The man, whose name was Samuel, led Maria to a small hidden ranch he had built on the edge of the desert. It was simple but safe, surrounded by hills and rocks that provided natural protection. Samuel showed her the barn, the small house, and the water source he had carefully preserved. "This will be your place for now," he said. "You can rest, eat, and regain your strength. You are safe here." Maria could hardly believe it. For weeks she had imagined danger around every corner, feared every stranger, and now she had a place to breathe, to heal, to simply exist without fear. In the following days, Maria began to adjust to life on the ranch. Samuel treated her not as a possession or a child in need of direction, but as a capable person. He taught her how to tend to the animals, feed the chickens, and care for the horses. He showed her where to find water, how to repair fences, and how to keep the ranch running smoothly. Maria absorbed every lesson quickly, eager to learn and grateful for the guidance. She was still cautious around him, still aware of her own vulnerability, but slowly, a sense of trust and even friendship began to grow between them. Maria's nights were no longer filled with fear, but with quiet reflection. She would sit by the small fire in the yard, listening to the gentle sounds of the ranch, the soft snoring of animals, the wind rustling through the hills. She thought about her journey, the desert, and her survival. She realized that her escape had not only saved her life, but had also made her stronger. She had faced the worst the world could offer and had come out alive. Samuel's presence added a new dimension to her life: safety, kindness, and the possibility of human connection without fear. Even as she grew stronger, Maria never forgot the lessons of the desert. She remained cautious, observant, and respectful of her own instincts. She explored the surrounding hills carefully, learning to navigate and find food and water if necessary. She continued to test her limits, building confidence and skill. But now, she had someone she could rely on if danger came, someone who understood the value of compassion and safety. For Maria, this combination of independence and support was a new and powerful experience. Over time, Maria and Samuel began to share stories. She told him about her childhood, the traditions of her people, and her dreams of freedom and self-reliance. Samuel shared his own experiences, the challenges of life in the desert, and the importance of kindness and respect for all living beings. Maria found comfort in these stories. She realized that trust could be built slowly, through actions and patience, and that some people truly did care without expecting anything in return. One day, as Maria rode a horse across the gentle hills surrounding the ranch, she felt a sense of peace she had never known. The wind brushed her face, the sun warmed her back, and the landscape stretched endlessly in shades of gold and green. She thought about how far she had come, from a frightened girl running through the desert to a strong, capable young woman who could survive, adapt, and even thrive. Samuel watched from a distance, a quiet guardian, allowing her the space to grow and learn. Maria felt gratitude swell in her chest, not just for his help, but for the reminder that there was goodness in the world, even after betrayal and danger. Maria's trust in Samuel grew steadily, but she never forgot her independence. She continued to make decisions, take risks, and rely on her own judgment. The balance between caution and trust became her strength. She learned that freedom was not just about escaping danger, but about finding the right people to walk alongside her, offering guidance, friendship, and safety without taking away her choice. By the end of her first month on the ranch, Maria felt a deep transformation within herself. She was no longer the frightened girl fleeing her father. She was a survivor, a learner, and someone capable of facing the world on her own terms. The desert had taught her resilience, and Samuel's kindness had shown her that trust could exist even after betrayal. She now understood that freedom was not simply running away, but building a life where she could breathe, grow, and be respected. Maria still thought about her past, her family, and the life she had left behind. She still felt sadness and loss, but those feelings were tempered by strength and hope. Each day brought new challenges and new lessons, but she faced them with courage. The desert had tested her, and she had passed. Samuel's ranch provided safety, and more importantly, it provided a space where she could heal, learn, and plan for the future. Maria knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she felt ready. She had survived the desert alone, and now she was ready to survive and thrive in the world she had chosen for herself. Life on the ranch became Maria's new reality, a mixture of hard work, quiet moments, and small joys. Each morning the sun rose over the hills in bright shades of gold and pink, painting the sky in colors that reminded her of freedom. She woke early, as the animals needed care and the chores of the ranch waited. At first she had been unsure of herself, but Samuel's gentle guidance gave her the courage to try, and she learned quickly. She fed the chickens, gathered eggs, and helped water the small vegetable garden. Every task, no matter how small, made her feel capable and alive. Riding the horses was one of the most difficult skills for Maria to learn, but also one of the most rewarding. At first she was afraid, her legs shaky, her hands trembling as she gripped the reins, but Samuel taught her patiently, never rushing or scolding her. He showed her how to read the horse's movements, how to sit balanced, and how to communicate with the animal through gentle gestures. Maria's confidence grew with each ride. By the end of the first week, she could ride across the hills with grace, feeling the wind on her face and the strength of the horse beneath her. It was a freedom unlike any she had experienced before, a feeling that no one could take away. Evenings on the ranch were quieter, slower, and filled with reflection. Maria often sat by the fire, her hands warmed by the flames, her eyes following the stars that shone brightly above. She thought about the desert, about her escape, and about the harsh lessons she had learned. But now, the fear that had once consumed her was tempered by the safety and kindness she experienced at the ranch. She remembered her mother's words about bravery and resilience, and she realized that she had lived those lessons fully. Each challenge she had faced had shaped her into someone stronger, someone capable of survival, not just in the desert but in life itself. As the days turned into weeks, Maria began to notice subtle changes in herself. She moved with purpose, spoke with clarity, and made decisions confidently. Samuel encouraged her to take responsibility, to trust her instincts, and to embrace her own judgment. She learned to mend fences, repair tools, and manage the small tasks that kept the ranch running smoothly. Each accomplishment filled her with pride. For the first time, Maria felt that she was building something of her own, a life shaped by her choices rather than dictated by others. One morning, Maria found herself tending to a sick lamb that had fallen behind the rest of the herd. The little animal trembled, weak and frightened. Maria knelt beside it, whispering softly, her hands gentle and careful. She remembered the desert, the small creatures she had observed and sometimes hunted, and the lessons she had learned about survival and care. She cleaned the lamb's wounds, fed it water, and stayed with it until its breathing steadied. Watching the lamb regain strength brought Maria a deep sense of satisfaction. She realized that caring for others, even animals, was not just a duty, but a way to understand her own strength and compassion. Samuel noticed these changes in Maria and praised her quietly. "You've come a long way," he said one evening as they watched the sun dip below the hills. "You've faced the desert, survived alone, and learned more than many people could in a lifetime." You have courage and heart, Maria. Don't forget that. His words filled her with a quiet confidence. She knew that he did not say them lightly. He had seen her struggle, her determination, and her growth. In that moment, Maria felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before, a feeling that she mattered, that her efforts were seen and valued. Life on the ranch also taught Maria patience. Not everything went smoothly. There were days when animals got sick, tools broke, or the weather turned harsh. At first, she became frustrated, unsure how to handle these setbacks. But Samuel showed her that patience and persistence were as important as strength and skill. He taught her to assess problems carefully, to plan solutions, and to remain calm even in the face of difficulty. Slowly, Maria learned that challenges were not just obstacles, but opportunities to grow, to think clearly, and to act wisely. Social interactions, though limited, were another lesson Maria learned on the ranch. Samuel occasionally spoke with travelers or nearby neighbors, and Maria observed how he treated them, with respect, fairness, and kindness. She noticed the difference between someone who acted out of fear or selfishness and someone who acted out of understanding and compassion. These lessons shaped the way she saw the world. She began to understand that trust was earned, that actions mattered more than words, and that the right people could help you grow rather than harm you. Maria also discovered moments of joy and beauty in the daily routines of the ranch. She enjoyed collecting eggs in the morning, the warmth of the sun on her back, and the playful behavior of the animals. She liked walking along the hills at dawn, feeling the quiet of the desert before the day fully awakened. Each small joy reminded her that life could be both hard and beautiful, that challenges and happiness could exist side by side. These moments strengthened her resolve and gave her hope for the future. One afternoon, as Maria worked in the garden, she noticed a group of wildflowers growing near the edge of the property. Their bright colors seemed almost impossible in the dry, dusty landscape. She knelt beside them, touching the delicate petals, feeling a sense of connection to life itself. It reminded her of the small oasis she had found in the desert weeks earlier, a place of beauty and hope. She realized that even in the harshest conditions, life could thrive, and so could she. Her journey had taught her that survival was not just about escaping danger, but about finding moments of wonder and holding on to them. As Maria became more skilled and confident, she began to explore areas of the ranch she had never visited. She discovered hidden paths, small streams, and places where animals liked to rest. She learned to navigate using the sun and stars, remembering the lessons of the desert. These explorations gave her a sense of independence and control over her environment. For the first time in her life, she felt fully capable of making decisions that affected her safety and well-being. She no longer felt like a child at the mercy of adults. She was an equal, a partner in survival and life on the ranch. Maria's relationship with Samuel continued to evolve. While they did not speak of her past in detail, there was an unspoken understanding between them. He never pressured her to share more than she was ready to, and she learned to trust him gradually. Their bond was built on respect, kindness, and mutual understanding. Maria realized that not everyone in the world sought to control or harm her. Some people could be guides, protectors, and friends without expecting anything in return. This realization was as important as any skill she had learned on the ranch. It gave her a new way of seeing the world. Evenings remained her favorite time. After the chores were done, Maria would sit by the fire or on the porch of the small house, watching the sun set behind the hills.
The colors shifted from gold to orange to deep purple, and the air cooled.
She felt a sense of peace she had never known before. The desert that had once seemed hostile now appeared beautiful, full of life and opportunity. She remembered her journey, the fear, the struggle, and the survival, and understood how much she had grown. Each day on the ranch added another layer of strength, knowledge, and self-confidence. By the end of her second month on the ranch, Maria had transformed into a young woman capable of facing the world with courage and wisdom. She could handle the daily tasks of ranch life, care for animals, navigate the land, and manage unexpected challenges. More importantly, she had learned to trust herself and others carefully. She had found a balance between independence and connection, strength and compassion, caution and hope. Maria realized that the ranch was not just a place to hide. It was a place to grow, to heal, and to build a life that belonged to her. In her quiet moments, Maria thought about the future. She knew that the desert and the world beyond it still held dangers, but she no longer feared them as she once had. She understood that freedom was not simply escaping danger, but building a life where she could thrive. She had survived the desert alone, faced her fears, and learned skills that would carry her through any challenge. Now, with Samuel's guidance and the safety of the ranch, she could look forward with hope rather than dread. Maria also began to dream again, dreams of what her life could become. She imagined a future where she could continue to grow, learn, and explore the world without fear. She thought about helping others who were in need, sharing the kindness and guidance she had received. She understood that her journey had shaped her not just as a survivor, but as someone who could inspire and protect others. Each day, each task, each quiet moment added to her sense of purpose and possibility. Life on the ranch taught Maria many lessons, but the most important was the lesson of inner strength. She realized that survival was not just about escaping danger, but about cultivating courage, patience, skill, and hope. She learned that trust could be built, that kindness existed even after betrayal, and that freedom was something worth fighting for every single day. Maria understood that she had the power to shape her own life, to face challenges with determination, and to find beauty and joy even in the most difficult circumstances.
The morning sun rose over the hills, painting the ranch in soft shades of gold.
Maria stood on a small ridge, looking out over the valley below. The wind brushed her face, warm and gentle, carrying the smell of dry grass, wildflowers, and the faint scent of the animals she had cared for so many times. She took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. For the first time in her life, she felt truly free, not just in body but in mind and spirit. Every hardship she had endured, every challenge she had faced, had led her to this moment, and she could feel it deep in her bones. Maria's thoughts drifted back to the desert she had crossed, the blazing sun, the empty stretches of sand, the nights spent under the stars. All of it had shaped her into the person she had become. She remembered the fear, the hunger, and the pain, but she also remembered the moments of beauty, the small oasis with clear water, the rustle of animals in the night, the way the stars seemed to guide her when she had nothing else. The desert had tested her, and she had survived. It had forced her to rely on her own courage and skills, teaching her lessons she would carry for the rest of her life. Samuel approached quietly from the barn, holding a small basket of fresh eggs. He noticed Maria standing on the ridge, her hair lifted by the wind, her eyes fixed on the horizon. He smiled softly, recognizing the transformation in her posture, her expression, and the calm confidence that radiated from her. "Good morning," he said gently. "You look different today. Stronger." Maria turned toward him and smiled, a faint blush on her cheeks.
I feel stronger, she admitted. I've learned so much, not just about survival, but about myself.
"About what I'm capable of." Samuel nodded, setting the basket down.
I always knew you could do it, he said. But it's one thing to survive. It's another to truly live. Huh.
"And I think you are beginning to live fully now." Maria felt a surge of gratitude, not only for his help, but also for his quiet belief in her abilities. Samuel had never forced her, never judged her for her past, and had allowed her to grow at her own pace. That trust had given her something more than food, shelter, or safety. It had given her hope. Over the following weeks, Maria continued to explore both the ranch and herself. She rode the horses across the hills, tending to the animals and maintaining the fences. She took time to study the plants and the small streams, learning to predict weather patterns and noticing the signs of the land around her. Every day brought new lessons, new opportunities to test her skills, and new ways to grow stronger. Yet Maria never took her safety or her freedom for granted. She remained cautious, aware that the world could still be dangerous, but she faced each day with a quiet confidence that had been absent in her past. Maria also began to help Samuel in ways she had not anticipated. She learned to organize supplies, manage chores efficiently, and even help him repair parts of the ranch that had been damaged by storms or neglect. Samuel often watched from a distance, proud but never imposing, allowing her to take initiative and responsibility. Maria realized that she had not only survived but thrived. She was capable of contributing meaningfully, not only for herself, but for others as well. The ranch had become a place of growth, independence, and self-discovery. The relationship between Maria and Samuel continued to deepen, based on mutual respect and trust. They shared stories in the evenings, laughing over small memories and reflecting on the difficulties they had faced. Maria spoke of her childhood, her family, and the moments that had frightened and inspired her. Samuel spoke of his own experiences, teaching her about the desert, about life, and about kindness. These conversations became a source of comfort and learning, helping Maria understand the value of connection, honesty, and support. She realized that trust, once earned, could be a powerful tool for growth and safety. One afternoon, Maria decided to explore beyond the usual paths she had taken. She ventured to a distant ridge where she could see the entire valley spread out below her. The view took her breath away. The rolling hills, the scattered trees, the winding stream reflecting the sunlight, and the small ranch nestled among it all. She felt a sense of accomplishment, pride, and belonging. This land, once foreign and intimidating, now felt like a place she could call her own. The sense of ownership was not about possession but about connection. She had worked, survived, and grown here, and the land reflected her efforts. In that moment, Maria reflected on how far she had come. She thought about the young girl who had fled her father's betrayal, barefoot and terrified in the desert. She remembered the nights of fear, the hunger, the storms, and the moments when she had doubted her own strength. And now, standing on the ridge, she realized that she had become someone entirely different, someone resilient, capable, and free. The fear that had once ruled her life had been replaced by courage and self-reliance. She had taken control of her destiny, and the power she felt was exhilarating. Maria also began to think about the future. She understood that life would not always be easy, and that challenges would continue to appear. But she no longer feared them in the same way. She had learned to face danger with calm, to solve problems with patience and intelligence, and to trust her instincts. She envisioned a life where she could continue to grow, explore, and contribute, helping others and using her experiences to guide them. The hardships of the past had not broken her. They had built her, and she intended to carry that strength forward. The days on the ranch became filled with a rhythm of purpose and fulfillment. Maria's skills continued to improve. She could mend fences, care for sick animals, ride horses across the hills, and navigate the surrounding wilderness with ease. Her confidence was evident in every movement, every decision, and every action. She realized that the life she had dreamed of, a life of freedom, choice, and independence, was no longer a dream, but her reality. The ranch, once a place to hide, had become a place to grow, heal, and thrive. Maria also discovered a new sense of joy in simple things. She enjoyed tending the garden, noticing how the plants responded to sunlight and water, and feeling the satisfaction of a small, thriving harvest. She loved caring for the animals, observing their behaviors, and learning from them. Even small moments like watching a sunset or feeling the cool morning breeze on her face brought her peace and happiness. These experiences, once taken for granted by others, now held deep meaning for Maria. They were symbols of her survival, her independence, and her freedom. Her relationship with Samuel, grounded in trust and respect, remained a quiet but essential part of her life. He continued to guide her, encourage her, and provide support when necessary, but never at the cost of her independence. Maria understood that freedom was not just about escaping danger, but about finding people who respected her choices and allowed her to grow. Samuel had offered her this balance, and she had embraced it fully. She knew that she could survive on her own, but she also knew that connection and kindness were invaluable parts of life. One evening, Maria stood outside, watching the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple across the hills. The quiet of the ranch was broken only by the gentle sounds of the animals settling down for the night. She thought about the journey she had taken, from fear to freedom, from helplessness to strength. She remembered every moment of her escape, every challenge in the desert, and every lesson she had learned on the ranch, and she realized that all of it had led her to this moment. a moment of clarity, peace, and self-assurance. Maria understood that her life was now her own. No one could control her, dictate her choices, or take her freedom. She had survived the desert, built a life on the ranch, and grown into a young woman capable of facing the world on her own terms. She felt gratitude, not just for her own courage, but for the people and experiences that had helped shape her. The hardships had strengthened her, the kindness she had received had healed her, and the lessons she had learned had prepared her for any challenge that might come next. As night fell, Maria walked to the small porch of the house and sat quietly, looking at the stars that shone bright above the hills. She whispered a silent promise to herself. She would continue to live bravely, to embrace freedom, and to make choices that reflected her own will. She would protect her independence, value kindness, and nurture the strength she had fought so hard to discover. The journey was far from over, but she no longer feared it. She had survived, she had grown, and she had discovered the power within herself to face whatever lay ahead. Maria's story, once defined by fear and betrayal, had transformed into a story of courage, growth, and freedom. The ranch had given her a place to heal, to learn, and to discover her own strength. Samuel's quiet guidance and kindness had provided safety and trust, allowing her to thrive. And most importantly, Maria had learned that true freedom came not only from escaping danger, but from finding confidence, resilience, and hope within herself. She had become the person she had always dreamed of being, strong, capable, and free. Standing on the ridge once more, Maria took a deep breath, feeling the wind on her face, the warmth of the sun on her back, and the life around her. She had survived the impossible, grown beyond fear, and embraced a future full of hope. The desert that had once threatened to destroy her was now a part of her story, a reminder of her courage and determination. And in that moment, Maria knew with certainty that she was ready for whatever life might bring next. She was no longer a girl fleeing danger. She was a woman who had found her strength, her freedom, and her place in the world.